Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to, well, let's say welcome back to Heather. She's just traveled from the other side of the country, well, the middle of the country from Edmonton. Yeah. And welcome to Just Talking on a Tuesday. Yay. Heather, how was your journey? Was it good?
It was good. It was great. A lot of fun.
So what the topic that we thought that we would take on, and was supposed to be on Sunday, and I had also a little situation with ants. I sat in an ant nest, and at least now I'm much better than I was on the weekend. So one of the topics that we wanted to take on, Heather and I, is the fact that COVID is, it's not even the fact that it's not going away. It's the fact that for 2 years we were adjusting to things. We were still trying to find our feet. We were trying to find our normal, and things were never really firm. And that's the kind of thing that can lead to loss. That is a loss of the normal things that we would do day to day. And in some cases, a lot of people had people die. There was people that moved, like people that got into relationships and got married over those 2 years. But some of us, most of us, we're still in the change of things, and we're still trying to find our feet. And because of that, we're seeing now like a general malaise come into people where they're just sick and tired of things. And really, a lot of this is grief poking its head in. So one of the things we thought we'd talk about today is how that can show up and why it can show up as in another way in which we don't associate loss of a normalcy of our day-to-day life as us grieving that change. So Heather, that was a big yammer. This is what you get when it's after a day of work and all that stuff. Take it from there. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think for me, I go back to the definition of grief that we use with the GRM method, that it's the change in a familiar pattern of behavior. And I think, I mean, you're right. For some people, they're, over the past 2 years, they still haven't been able to find a normal, find something that works. But there are a lot of people who, did manage to fall into a pattern or fall into some kind of new normal and grieve what was the past. And now they're being asked to go back to that. And, and it's like, okay, now you've got to grieve the pattern that you just kind of got into over the past 2 years, and you're going through it all over again. And I think that's hard for people, is that you just seem to be in a continual state of grief over what seems like nothing. Like, it's just like, it's a constant change of what's happening in your life, and you're in a constant flux and a constant switch from this to that, back to this, back to that, and not knowing if this is going to last, right? Like, are we going to, people that are all of a sudden like, no, we want you back in the office, that kind of thing. And you've got to upend your life again and go back to work. But are we going to find out in 3 months that we're working at home again, right? Like that kind of thing, right? So you're kind of that anticipatory grief, right? Are we going to lose this again, right? Is this going to happen again? Are we going to have to switch again? And I think that has caused a lot of grief and a lot of loss for people.
And a lot of anxiety. And I love the fact, the anticipatory grief. And now I'm going to actually put it into another terminology that's used a lot lately, that's used a lot these days, and that is trauma. So yes. In the trauma world, a lot of that is anticipatory stress. But stress and grief are not too far apart, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is that as we have this change, our nervous system, right, being on high alert, we don't know what's going to happen. So there's the physiology of what's going on. So really, and looking at the trauma world, or looking at it from a trauma first perspective, is that first we have to feel safe. And that's where, as you said, you were talking about people that had a sense of the new normal. And
Yeah.
it's really normalcy. And one of the keys there that I would like to throw in as well is to make sure that you know what grounds you, that you know what allows you to decompress. And a lot of this can be friends, family that we can talk to, but it can also be going for a walk, hugging a tree. We're in the middle of summer now, getting outside and moving around. You and I both have gardens. It's great to get your hands in the dirt. And it's important to know what grounds you, so that no matter what's happening outside of you, you still have the grounding. That's the first part. That's a physiology of trauma. And that's the fact of getting our autonomic nervous system safe. And then we can process how we felt. And that's the part that I think we miss. We've had this big loss. A lot of it is like, sort of like, the guy on roller skates trying to find his footing. There you go. That's my good English just for you. But then the other part is now to sit down and go, okay, so how do I feel about this? Or what did I feel? Or what did I feel at the beginning? Have I processed what I felt at that time? Have I actually given it words? Have I given it an emotional expression?
And have you acted on it?
Right? Yeah.
And have you acted on those feelings? Right?
Yeah.
And I know there's a number of us, myself included, that, when we got into the pandemic and you're working from home and everything changed, and all of a sudden it's like, no, I prefer this. I like this. I prefer to do this. And I like the way this is going. And I feel much better about this. So when it got to a point where it was talking about coming back into the office on a more regular basis, I said, I'm not interested in coming back 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And so that was, for me, that was my action, right? I acted on that, sit down with those feelings, sit down with that process and say, no, this is better for me. It's not for everybody, for sure. But for me, that was like, this is a better setup for me to be able to work from home, to not have to go into the office all the time. And that has, parlayed into me going back to working for myself and all that kind of fun stuff. But it's the, have you acted on those feelings over the past 2 years? Or are you at a point where you're changing again and the feelings are riled up again? And it's like, maybe it's time for you to not just acknowledge those feelings, but to decide if there's an action that you need to take.
And that's the key, isn't it? I mean, that's what I love about the grief recovery method in general, is the fact that, I just saw a report the other day it was on John Oliver last week tonight, and it's in the States, but talks about the lack of mental health resources that they have, or even the inability to find them. So when it comes to like combining this with the other work that I do, where it's grief support, but we just have to call it support, because really it's just about being able to give yourself at least 5 minutes a day to just focus on, well, how am I feeling? Checking in. And so a lot of things that are out there, mindfulness, awareness, all of this stuff is really important. But the one thing, I just had a big chat last night, and the biggest thing that I think we neglect to do is stand still long enough to say, okay, wow, what just happened? Where am I? I thought I dealt with all that. And that's really great. It's not about rehashing things that you haven't, that you've done before. It's coming at it from I'm going to say a global perspective, like looking at your life and how does that result from the backpack that we talk about in the grief recovery method, that we've been carrying this backpack and it just gets heavier and heavier with all these losses or all these changes or all these, and these are good changes. I can remember feeling a great deal of stress when I moved to the Bahamas the first time when I took a job there. I didn't even think about it. I just, my intention was to get paid to see the world. I didn't think about how I would land there. what would I need to do to ground me there? Well, that's an easy way to look at change. But COVID's been done just the same. As you said, first of all, no, we can't go into the office. And now being around people might bring up a slight anxiety. I just came home on the subway for the first time in, I can't tell you, like when it was like close to a rush hour. And it was great because I saw a lot of people with masks, because that's when we want to wear masks. So it's like getting into this is what grounds you? Anyways, thoughts, Heather? I just went around in circles again, but.
No, I agree. I think, yeah, you've got to know what's gonna help you ground, cope, assess, right? You need to be able to take those moments, but also, yes, to find a way to, what is it that's gonna put you on solid ground emotionally, not just physically, that, emotionally you can say, okay, yes, this is what I need to do to breathe and to take that, moment for whatever it is to do that thing, that action, right? That's gonna stabilize you. Because I think that's part of it, is that we're very good at being caught up in our heads, right? And very good with the anxiety and the stress in terms of, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens? I got all these people around me. What if this, da 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 da. And you get into that headspace, and it's like, okay, what do I need to do to fix me? I can't fix everybody else. What do I need to do to fix me? What do I need to do to ground me? And maybe that's, getting off the subway for a moment and just like getting out of the people and then getting back in, right? Maybe that's just closing your eyes and taking some, moments on the subway before, like, what is that in that moment, in that situation? What is it that you need to do to ground? Sometimes it's a bigger thing, like me with, being faced with going back to work, a year ago, and like, wasn't expected to be in there 5 days a week. But at that point, I knew I was never going to go back 5 days a week. And I said at that point in time, when we were talking about coming in once or twice a week, I was like, I can tell you right now, I'm not going to come in 5 days a week ever. And I was just like, I cannot do that again, because that's what I realized. And that's a much bigger thing, right? Like, that's a much bigger thought process and a much bigger, but it's also the little things too, right? Like you say, like the riding on the subway or whatever. You have to take those moments for big or small things to figure out what it is that's going to center you and focus you, and then decide what the action is.
And I think that's, I mean, there's a couple of things too, that I would like to put out there, because there is a level of anxiety, and anxiety is, as you say, in our head, and we're worried about the future, or we're concerning ourselves with the future. So like some of the things that you can do, practical things you can do, is monitor your self-talk. And that's why I like to use the word self-attention, right? And we've been using that in our courses, because self-attention is not just self-care. For some reason, it conjures up bubble baths and writing in your journal in the morning with a warm cup of tea, which is really great. And if you have that, that's fabulous. But maybe, like, I just got back my balcony. That was my sage place, my safe place, right? And I didn't realize until last week how much energetically that was draining me. So that's the other thing, is it's not just if you don't have access to those things that did ground you, like that's why I went into the office today, and they finally moved. They finally moved, and my balcony's finally mine. So to keep in mind that, give yourself, the self-attention is about really being compassionate, really giving yourself a break. If you are overwhelmed, if you are feeling stretched, turn off anything that's not feeding your head and your heart. Nothing's going to go on that you have control over, as you said, right?
Yeah.
That you have control over. Nothing's going to go on. You don't have to watch on TV or whatever. Just watch silly, like, don't watch any TV, even the books that you're reading, take a look at them. Like, do these uplift me? When there's one thing feeding your brain, but if you're feeling overwhelmed, it doesn't have to be forever, but maybe start reading comic books that are just silly,
Yeah.
Calvin
Well,
and Hobbes.
like you say, find that thing that not just uplifts you. I mean, there's the uplift side, but also the thing that grounds you and centers you.
Yeah.
And something that you can put a moment of control on. Yeah. And again, it doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be enormous. It can be small, like you say, just picking up a different kind of book for the day, or turning off the news, or whatever, or washing a load of dishes, or something that's concrete that you can do that says, okay, I've accomplished this today, this little thing I have done today. I was in Edmonton helping a friend get her house new place a bit more ready for her, and she's moving in. She's already been moving in, but there's some work to do. And when I left this week, I said, just spend this week doing one thing every day in the new place, and not a big thing. If it means you come home from work and you hang one picture, great. Just do one thing, just to have that concrete action that is moving you forward, right? So that you've got that concrete grounding action. So yeah, just if you're in that anxiety and stress state of things you can't control, find one thing you can control to do.
Exactly. And a lot of times when it comes to anxiety too, there's the 5 senses. So you can basically, first of all, start with breath work, where you can just take some nice deep breaths. The other thing that you can do is, like, the other senses are, what do I see? And literally like scan around you. And like, this is why I have my office set up the way it is, because normally there's no ropes there anymore. I'm getting all excited, but the whole thing here is I look out and I see the tops of trees, and that's on purpose, right? So what are those things? What do you feel? What do you smell? Make yourself a coffee, even if you don't drink it, that kind of thing, right? And I know that Heather, for instance, does Reiki, which is a wonderful, if you can do that kind of thing where it's energy work, and it helps you with the stuck emotions, because the interesting thing is our body is like it's like a conduit, right?
Yeah.
And so we feel safer when we have that energy flowing. We feel more grounded when we have that energy going. And I know that Heather, I don't know if you guys are aware, but Heather does Reiki, which can also be done as distance Reiki. And she also does her own aromatherapy. Like, I know there's quite a few people on my channels that are doTERRA and Young Living. And you know what? It doesn't matter where you go. It does matter that you use, like, you do some great blends, Heather, right? So
I do. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I do some generic ones, but I tend to, if I'm doing aromatherapy per se, I do specifics, because that's very tailored to the person.
Yeah.
No.
And even that kind of stuff, I mean, we can get the generic ones, but if there is something like, I love rose, I love geranium, and that's what I put in my bath, and I know self-care, taking a bath is also important, but here's another like thing to ponder, right? Maybe get out and do something that you haven't done before, because then you're walking into the world with curiosity instead of dread, or instead of fear or anxiety. And for example, I went to Hanlon's Point this weekend and went to the beach, except for where I sat in the fire ant, in the red ant nest. Other than that, it was still fabulous. I met this man who I'm going to get that print put on my wall, this artist, because there's an artist colony over on Hanlon's Point. We have so many interesting neighborhoods in the city of Toronto, and I'm sure in your own city. So get a map of the city and point a finger, and then just go for a walk around there. Just because a lot of times doing something new, a change is as good as a rest, is also another thing that's said, but the other thing with just going for a walk or going and being in these different places, it also starts the thoughts coming. Your heart maybe is telling you where the anxiety is coming from, and start that conversation with your heart as you're doing these kinds of things, as you ground yourself. If you listen to your self-talk and it's becoming anxiety driving, like it's like, oh, but what happens if that's where we stop and we go, can I control that? And if the answer is no, what's our next thing? Any other
Right.
suggestions, Heather?
No, I think those are all great suggestions. And as I said, you need to find what works for you as an individual, because what works for somebody else is not necessarily going to work for you. But I think most people, if you really kind of take that moment and listen to yourself, you'll know whether it's, a walk in the park or, read a book or, do some housework, or you'll know what it is that's gonna give you that moment of control and peace of mind and reduce the stress and take that, moment to breathe.
Yeah. Isn't it funny? I love washing dishes too, or doing laundry and then cleaning a counter. And
Yeah, there's that
You know?
sense of control, right? That sense of control and accomplishment. It's like, I can do this and I can complete something, and I can, I've done it, and it's better when you've done it, right? Because you're improving your space as well, right? So.
And I think just to finish up on that. So I guess because we're around the 25-minute mark. So because I know that's the one thing when I am distressed or when I know something's going on inside, the other part is how are you getting those messages that you need to do something? And for me, it's like if my place gets messy, like, and so right now there's a combination of like I have 210 square, foot by foot tiles all over my place. I have tables because my whole outside is inside. And I think that this comes back to the COVID thing. I think I was offsetting or denying how much of an emotional effect this had on me. And so, even today, being able to go out to the office that I do work in, and I was able to get something done quick and focused because I didn't have strange men jumping on my balcony, so I think that's important too, right? Is to be able to take a look at where we are now. And even if this happened in the 8th week or the 7th or 8th week of this happening, it's still important to acknowledge that, because again, what we're coming back to is there might be things that you felt at the beginning of COVID, 2019, 2020, where things really changed. And because you were scrambling and because maybe other people, there was health issues or who knows what was going on with work, maybe you lost your job, maybe there was another focus, but there might not have been a time, there's that movie, Waiting to Exhale,
Yeah.
and that's really it. Have you exhaled? And I don't know if you notice when you get anxious, I don't know about you guys, this is why I can't watch hockey. I forget to breathe. I stop breathing.
Yeah.
So what are those signs for you? That's some of my signs. Do you have any signs like that, Heather? Any insight along those lines?
Yeah, I was gonna say, when I get anxious, it tends to manifest in the physical side of things, right? That, the tightness, the shallow breathing, the coughing, that kind of stuff. It tends to manifest that way for me. So that's,
So there you go. So beware and be safe, as they would say in that child of marketing. So really what we've covered today is it doesn't matter how long it takes you. I mean, that's why even in the grief recovery method, we have people that have been grieving for years and they think they've got it all taken care of, myself included. And then I do this process and it's like, wow, that felt like, I call it cleaning the recycle bin of our heart, right? We put everything in our recycle bin, but we don't actually get rid of it. So, first of all, let's be aware if there's things that we feel that we can't control. If we have any anxiety, you might even feel panic. I know that there's been a rise in a bunch of that of that kind of stuff. So when it comes to that, breath work is great. Movement is great. Just go out for a walk. Pick a neighborhood. Pick a stop on the subway line if you have access to it and you're comfortable to the subway, and then get off and walk the streets. I mean, not walk the streets that way, you know, but walk around, poke in the little, go to a, is there a kind of food that you like, you know, go to a neighborhood and investigate what's a good restaurant and just do something a little different, right? And that can help as well. And any last thoughts, Heather?
No, I don't think so. I think we're good. I think we covered it all. So.
There you go. So that's us for just talking, and we will be back next weekend, I promise, on the Sunday.
Yeah.
That's it. And again, if you're interested in learning more about Heather's Lazy Cat Oils, you can go to
lazycatoils.com.
There you go. And we are both available for the grief recovery method. If you have any information that you want, we have a Helping Children with Loss program. We have the basic grief recovery method program. So please contact us and get signed up for our newsletters, and we can help you out. And we've got other classes that are starting in September. So get on the waiting list, and that's going to be helpful. And it's probably the best gift you could give yourself, right?
Yep, definitely.
That's my experience.
Yeah, same here. Wow.
Okay, so we'll see you all later. Have a great week, and we'll see you on Sunday. Okay, Heather, we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Okay, bye.